and look up what the different use cases are. So we'll be talking with our panelists about drone as a first responder, and then emergency response and avalanche monitoring, two very intriguing topics. And I'll talk about some of the additional testing we've done on a solar farm with on-demand utility inspections, and then a few additional use cases to keep your mind going. Man, just wants to jump ahead on you.
I know it. There we go. Hi, like Brett said, I am Felix Williams, Patrol Sergeant with Pearland. We are a suburb of South Houston. If you see this yellow line right here, that is the Houston city limit. So we butt up right up to Houston. So we're about 49 square miles of coverage and have about 132,000 people in our city with 179 sworn officers. Our daily traffic is a lot higher than our population due to these major thoroughfares that we have coming in and out of Houston. That's just kind of a little bit about our area and our size and what we're working with. So DFR, what is DFR? DFR is drone as first responder. Essentially, we are, to put it bluntly, we are dispatchers in the air. Currently how normal dispatching and calls for service response is, hey, something happens. So somebody picks up the phone, they call 911, they call the police department, they say, hey, this is what's going on, this is where it's at. And then so the person that's taking the call will type in notes in the computer, and then another dispatcher will get on the radio and relay those notes to the officers that are responding. So there's a delay in time between when the person's giving that information and when officers receive that information. And so what DFR aims to do is to cut down on that time and also provide accurate information from a trained operator. Going through here, this is what this slide's talking about. That's exactly what we're doing. I'll get into the stats here in a little bit, but call comes out, we see it, we send a drone up, go to it, and then we can provide real-time information and also video feed to not only our dispatchers but the responding officers of saying, hey, this is where this is happening exactly, and also what is happening. So we can go ahead and get more resources on the phone if we need them right from the get-go. So moving on, that's just a little bit about DFR. Beyond visual line of sight operations. So we got our COA from the FAA for completely remote beyond visual line of sight operations. So we don't need to have any visual observers with eyes on the drone whatsoever. And that is awesome. It allows us to essentially, I can sit in the drone office, the operations office that we have, and it's about, I think it's about 6 miles away from where our actual drone is. And nobody has to have eyes on the drone due to the technology that we've incorporated with it to fly and do this operation. So a couple of things that are necessary to do that for us is we utilize Iris Automation's Cassia G ground-based air surveillance system. And so on this picture, actually, on top of this water tower is where we have one of those camera systems installed. And what that is, it's an optical-based aircraft detection system that also ties into ADS-B. And so what that looks like is essentially there's a module that has 6 or 8 cameras on it, where when an aircraft is coming in, it'll detect it, and then it will take a picture of it and it will send it to your screen so you can see exactly what the intrusion is on the airspace. whether it's a bird, whether it's a drone, whether it's the drone that I'm flying, or airplanes or helicopters. And then as it's tied into ADS-B, if it is a manned aircraft, then it will actually give you the registration number of the plane as well, and it will show the tracking path that the aircraft is going on. And that's all about collision mitigation and avoidance. And then on the drone side, we use White Fox, which is a drone detection system. It covers a huge radius. So if we go back to this map of Pearland, the one White Fox system that we have covers the entirety of our city, which is 49 square miles, and then about a third of Houston, and then even further south. So going into our airspace, about half, maybe a little bit more of Pearland is located within William P. Hobby Airport, KHOU's airspace. They are Class B airspace, and they have a 200-foot ceiling in their airspace. And so that is our ceiling that we have to operate with, even under our COA, due to timings of how fast we can descend and avoid aircraft and all that stuff. All right, so launch sites. Where do we pick them? How do we choose them? What, things with that. So it has to be a secure location with limited access, not just for the purposes of so people don't go in there and mess with the dock or the drone or stuff, but also safety. These drones are large; they can inflict serious injury, and so just as a precaution to people, it has to be in a secure location with limited access. That way nobody goes out there and they'll be like, oh, hey, what's that going on there? And then, they get an M30 running into them or their finger or something. It also has to be monitored in Cassia G airspace. That's the aircraft detection system. It has to be within the bounds of the White Fox drone detection system, which covers our whole city. And we integrate all of this into DroneSense. Is a third-party company that they do a lot of stuff, live streaming, communication, logs, all sorts of stuff with that. And then you also obviously have to have power and a network connection. So if you look at the picture on this slide, this is actually at one of our fire stations. So it's a controlled access. It's fenced and gated off. And it's kind of just sitting there in an open field where they're not doing stuff around it. They don't have any training in this area or anything, but it's a secure place that we can keep this while we operate. All right. So some use cases. What kind of calls can we send a drone for as a law enforcement agency? Pretty much anything. Anything that's in the public eye that we think, hey, additional information could be useful here. So that's what we're sending on. So some real time or real life cases that we have used the drone for and seen success with. This specific one, we got a call about some suspicious people in a neighborhood. They gave a vehicle description and a location. Well, the drone got there first. Got there several minutes before the responding officer was able to provide a real-time accurate location, which was different from what was given to our dispatch. So we were able to give that to the responding officers. We were also able to zoom in, read the tag that was on the vehicle, and then also orbit around to where we can see how many people are in that vehicle and provide that information to the officers. I think on this specific one, it was a minivan, and we were able to swing around and say, hey, there's two people in the front seat, there's one guy in the back seat. That way the officer knows what he's walking into, there's no surprises, and then with the amount of occupants, then we can go ahead and send a second officer just for safety. Another one we had, report of a missing elderly person. So the drone got there 4 minutes before the first officer. And so this one came from, it's like a senior center for Alzheimer's dementia. So very important that if somebody goes missing, we find out where they are, especially with how busy that area is and all the traffic and everything. So we were able to get there 4 minutes before the first officer. And with the drone, we were able to scan a huge area before any of the officers even showed up. And so on this one, she just happened to be sleeping in a different area of the building where she was. But even though we didn't find her with the drone, we still were able to rule out so many different places that she could have been. And that's just as valuable as finding her walking down the road. Another one, so we have we'll go back to Pearland, this major yellow vertical north and south route is State Highway 288. And so with State Highway 288, we have the State Highway 288 proper. We also have the feeder frontage road or service road for 288. And then we also have a new toll road. So we have a lot of crashes, a lot of motorist assist calls out there where it comes in and they say, hey, I'm on 288. I can see, the Bass Pro. Well, that doesn't really narrow it down for us. And on these roads, there's only very specific access points to get on those roads and get to those locations. So when we can send the drone up and we can go over there, find the vehicle and say, hey, they are in this block. They're in the 16200 block of State Highway 288 toll road north. And then that lets the responding officers know exactly where they have to go to access that part of the roadway. So that's been invaluable. Other type of call, ATM alarm at a bank. Drone's able to get there first, say, hey, there's a Brinks truck there. He's working on the ATM. That's what it looks like. Nothing seems out of the ordinary, but that's still something we want to send the officers to go out there and verify, but that's the information they have when they get out there, instead of just, hey, the alarm's going off at the ATM, so the alarm company calls the bank, and they don't answer, so they send us out there with no additional information. Some other ones, we had a suspicious person at HEB who was a previous suspect in a theft. The caller was able to provide clothing description and updates until he ended the phone call with our dispatch, and then the drone was able to get there first and follow that person as he was walking away from the location, and then direct the officers to where he was, and they were able to apprehend him and conduct their investigation. A big one for us is backing up officers on traffic stops. So an officer makes a request for backup on a traffic stop, whether or not they're going to they have a reason to conduct a search, whether or not the person has warrants or what have you. We want to have a second officer there for safety purposes. So one of the things we could do is, when the officer makes that request, is send the drone over there, right? Because if, God forbid something happens and the officer's incapacitated in one way or another and unable to provide any information, then the drone's there as a way to provide that information if the officer's no longer able to. Not only that, it's also a deterrent, because since we only have that 200-foot airspace ceiling, the M30 is a big drone. People are going to notice and see the drone. They're going to hear it. They're going to see it. And when they see that, especially when they realize that's part of our operations and what we have, it makes people a little bit less antsy to maybe do something silly that might get them or the officers hurt. Alarm calls. You really wouldn't think, alarm, why would we send the drone to an alarm? Well, a drone can basically do everything an officer can do at an alarm call, except for knock on the door and talk to a person. And so residential alarms, we're able to get there and we can scan the entire house, look for doors and windows that are open or broken or unsecured. Same with business alarms. We can go there and we can hang out. We can say, hey, business looks like it's going on. It's normal. Nobody seems in distress. And then we still send the officers to those locations, but they have that information of what to expect. If we go to a residential alarm and we're sending one officer and I can see with the drone, hey, the back door's open. Well, now we can go ahead and get another officer to en route so that if need be, we can clear the house and make sure that there's no criminal activity or invaders inside the home. Another thing our department does is security checks. So we can do, say you're going out of town for vacation for a couple of weeks, you can contact the police department and set up a security check. And so officers will go by at various hours throughout the day and night and just check on the home, make sure everything seems in place, house hasn't been broken into or anything with that. We also do that with businesses, especially like new construction where there's a lot of construction theft. We go in there and I can fly an entire construction scene in a couple minutes and see if anybody's there. And that's a lot quicker than sending an officer out there to walk around on foot or even driving around the property. And I can do a much more thorough and quick scan of the area with the drone. So essentially, we've been pretty successful in what we've been doing so far. Crashes, alarms, suspicious persons, in progress crimes, searching for people, security checks, backup, accurate locations, and we're still finding new ways to utilize it. It's every day it seems there's a new call type where I'm like, hey, you know what? Yeah, we could use a drone for that. We could use additional information for that for our responding officers. And we're, like I say, the sky's the limit, literally. We fly the drone and we go out there and do what needs to be done. And luckily our city council, they are fantastic and work with us and understand our public safety goal. And they actually just approved us to purchase two more docks. So we're going to end up with a total of 3 that we are going to put in our hotspots where we have all of our crimes and crashes to provide additional information in those areas where they are necessary. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have. Oh wait, nope, we got videos. I forgot. So let me swap over here. So this is going to show the operation of the dock and the M30 drone from the dock through Flight Hub. So we'll just go the first one here. All right, so there's no music or anything or voiceovers on here, so I'm going to go ahead and give a little spiel on it. So essentially what you do is you can either create a waypoint from Flight Hub to tell it exactly where you want it to go. You can set the how high you want it to fly on the way there, how high you want it above ground once it arrives there. And then you can also see at the bottom there on signal loss, there's a return to home, there's a continue mission, and then there's, I believe, a hover function. We always wanted to return home. And DJI drones are exceptional at doing that. So from the time you give it the takeoff or waypoint command, it's usually about, on average, we were seeing about 45 seconds. So from the time I say take off, it's in the air about 45 seconds later. And so it will go to its preset altitude, and then it will fly to your waypoint. And so On this one, we're flying to a waypoint down here. So this is not an emergency call we're going to. This was a traffic stop we set to show how this might look like. And so since it's not an emergency flight, we're limited on flying over moving vehicles and people. And so what we did on this one is we flew through these easements and utility areas behind the homes. And so, let's see. All right, and we'll go to the next one. All right. Let's show, there we go. All right. And then, so it will autonomously fly. Once you have, when you set a waypoint, it will autonomously fly there. You don't have to do any additional inputs or anything. So from here, we have the next portion of the video. Sorry.
Felix.
Yeah. So what I'm doing here is, since this is not an emergency response, I'm flying along this utility area back here behind the homes, and that's what we're doing until we get close enough to actually get eyes on. And so just to, when we're flying, especially over residential areas, we keep the camera either at or above horizon level. A lot of people think, hey, Big Brother, we're not recording what's going on in your backyard. We're flying to a call for service or a request for the drone or for backup, and that's what we care about. We don't gimbal down until we arrive on scene. And then, so here we are, we're close. And so if you look down at the bottom left of the video screen, you'll see the some controls there for anybody that's navigated with computer, played in computer games. WASD is very intuitive. It's just arrow keys on the keyboard. W to move forward, S to move back, A to strafe left, D to strafe right. Q is to yaw left, and E is to yaw right. C to ascend, Z to descend. And so here we are, we arrived at a traffic stop. We had this set up. So in this instance, this is where, let's say, an officer checks the person, finds out they have a warrant. Okay, so we're going to want, for safety purposes, a second officer there, but before he attempts to effect that arrest. That way the person feels a lot less confident or to try and resist the officer's actions to take them in custody. And so what we're doing here is we're just going to keep eyes on. We're going to keep eyes on the stop until that second officer arrives. And then, just a few of the things here on the screen is you can change from the wide angle camera and the zoom camera. And then on the M30Ts, there's also the infrared or the thermal camera as well. Some buttons down here in the lower left of the video feed. Those are to reset your gimbal. Let's see. There we go. Reset your gimbal. Either completely recenter it, or you can keep the vertical angle. There we go. And then we will show this last video here. There we go. All right, and so for RTH, again, since returning to the home is not an emergency, we just fly back the way we came. We know that's a clear avenue corridor that we can fly in, so we just fly back there. And then once we get to a point where we can fly in a safe straight line back, you can hit the RTH button and it will do its thing. It'll fly back to the dock, and as we'll see here, it will automatically land itself, center itself, and begin charging for the next flight. So it'll go over the dock, it will pitch straight down,